We are Gilroy Strong. We are.
The mass shooting in Gilroy, California. 3 innocent victims killed, including 2 children, and a dozen people injured. And like so many other attacks, the gunman apparently had a connection to hate groups online.
I think everybody wants to know why. The answer, why?
Today on Fox 11 News In Depth, the dangers that lurk on social media. From hate speech that ends in tragedy to cyber bullies out for blood and sites that glamorize eating disorders.
It's so easy to miss the signs and symptoms of an eating disorder.
And now there are new worries like deep fakes that completely distort what's real and what isn't. Today we look at online threats and how to spot them. Fox 11 News In Depth starts right now. Hello everyone, I'm Hal Eisner. It's tragic anytime people are killed in shootings, but mass shootings often have things in common that make them seem more preventable. Things like automatic weapons or hate groups online that incite violence. Today, we'll meet some of the people working to make that one part, social media, safer for all of us.
Oh, they shooting!
It's a sight that's all too familiar. People running for their lives, desperate to escape a mass shooter. This time, it's in Gilroy. And like so many other times, the alleged shooter may have been influenced by hate groups online.
Any affiliation with other people or groups of people that could potentially pose a threat in the future, I think that all plays into why that would be important to understand.
The Gilroy gunman's Instagram page showing a sign that says fire danger high and promotes a book popular with white supremacists. It isn't the first time. There are similarities to the accused synagogue shooter in San Diego County, both just 19 years old, and both apparently influenced by hate groups. Gilroy joins a growing list of hate-motivated attacks along with the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting and the New Zealand mosque tragedy. But hate online is just the tip of the iceberg.
Cyberbullying, hate speech, harassment, human trafficking, democracy tampering and propaganda, and privacy invasion, among others.
Mark Berkman is executive director of the Organization for Social Media Safety. It's a group founded by Ed Posner. He knows all too well the dangers of social media. His son Jordan was just 14 years old when he was sucker punched by someone he barely knew, while another person taped it, hoping to get likes online. Jordan suffered a brain injury and permanent hearing loss.
It's been really hard on me, and it's just really traumatic.
But it led to change. Governor Brown signing Jordan's law in 2017 to deter filming attacks just for the sake of posting them online.
It's a step in the right direction to let kids know that, their phones can't be used as weapons.
Joining me now are Mark Berkman with this organization called Organization for Social Media Safety. Also joining us, Ed Posner and his son Jordan Posner. They're the founders of this group. And this is not your first appearance on this program, Jordan, right?
Yeah.
You came back here when you were campaigning for this Jordan's Law. And just to give everybody just a quick brief on what happened. Dad, tell us what happened to your son.
Jordan was a victim of a social media motivated attack. He was sucker punched, and the incident was filmed and shared on social media, where it went viral very quickly.
Now, you were a banker, Bank of America.
Yeah.
That's what you did for a career. And all of a sudden, on the day he got sucker punched, your life changed.
180 degree.
You started this organization.
Correct.
Why?
I have to make a difference. We have to protect our children and everybody using social media, which is everybody.
How old are you now, Jordan?
I'm 17.
17. And how, since we last talked, how have you fared?
I've been getting better. It's a process, but I still have a lot of the side effects from it. I still have headaches, and I still have light sensitivity and hearing damage and all that, but
How do you feel about this organization and its purpose and what you and your dad are doing together?
I mean, it's a good thing. You see a lot of violence on social media. A lot of people just post fights and stuff for likes, and it's just why? You could do so much else on social media.
Mark, talk to me about Gilroy and how that Garlic Festival shooting may have been inspired in some way by social media.
Well, they're, of course, still investigating it, Hal, but what we know for sure at this point is that he posted extremist racist ideology before, which seems to be the trend now in these kind of horrific, hate-motivated mass shootings. We saw it in Pittsburgh, in New Zealand. We saw the shooter actually live stream it to get exposure.
And we're looking at footage right now from Gilroy. Mm-hmm. You see the panic, you see the chaos.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we also know going on in social media, whether you're a 13-year-old just going on social media for the first time or you're an adult, you are seeing hateful extremist posts and comments in your feed on a regular basis. So content that we thought was shocking 20 years ago is now becoming normalized. And those that are inclined to seek it out and look for more have an unlimited library of hate 24/7.
So what do you do? I mean, there's the $64,000 question. What do you do to try to combat this?
Two major things you should do, especially if you're a parent and you're handing over the phone to your kid to go on social media for the first time. You need to talk about hate and extremism. It's not something you had to do when you dropped your kid off at the mall or the movie theater, but now with social media you have to do it because they're going to see it, and you have to make it clear that it's not part of your family's values and your community values. And you also, most importantly, have to teach your kids to block and report, and we also have to do that as adults.
All right, so that's good planning and preparing, but what about people that you can't teach? People that maybe loners, people that are out there that end up ultimately dealing with these crime situations who may not have been the son of somebody who had a good conversation about what you shouldn't do on social media.
Well, the platforms have to do a better job of getting this content off the platform immediately when it goes up.
Do you think they're doing a good job?
They are improving, but they're not where they need to be, clearly.
You don't think they're doing a good job?
No, I think they're doing a good job, but they definitely need to step it up.
Well, what do they need to do to step it up? I mean, where's it lacking?
It's part of its technology here, getting the algorithms right, so they are pulling stuff down automatically, and then getting the manual responses when people do block and report that content, getting that pulled down immediately instead of having to wait for it to go through a long process.
There are a lot of concerns about privacy, and a lot of people don't want to give up something that they may lose their privacy on. And yet, do you think there should be some kind of government intervention here?
In terms of, I would say...
Yeah, go ahead, Ed, because I see you nodding your head.
No. I want Mark to talk on that just for his background. But yeah, I do believe there should be. Honestly, there should be some intervention from the government when it comes to social media.
Why do you think that?
It's in everybody's hands right now. No one's monitoring it. We're the first consumer protection agency focused strictly on social media safety.
And so, Jordan, you hear what your dad is saying. You hear what Mark is saying as the executive director of this organization that you formed. What do you feel about this?
I mean, I think the same thing. Like, social media, like, you think about it, and it's like, as it's grown, like, in the past couple of years, like, it does so much for, like, companies, and, like, it benefits the government. Like, they should step in and, like, do something about it.
Do you still do social media?
Yeah.
You get on Facebook and Instagram and all of that?
I mean, I have, like, Instagram and stuff, but, like, I just, like, follow my friends. Like, I don't follow any other.
So you haven't been put aside by it because you got sucker punched and all that?
Yeah, no.
You've gone back to climbing up the hill that you fell down from.
Yeah.
The old saying. All right, Ed, Mark, Jordan, really good to have you on here. We're going to talk a lot more about social media issues. Still ahead, the issue of deep fakes, fake videos that look all too real, and why one California lawmaker wants to make deep fakes illegal for trying to tamper with democracy.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet.
You've probably seen this video showing comic Jordan Peele literally putting words in President Obama's mouth. Others superimpose faces over famous people like President Trump. They're called deep fakes, something that's fake but looks very real or close to it. Usually it's people trying to get a laugh, but in the wrong hands, deep fakes can have devastating consequences. Joining us now to talk about deep fakes are Assemblyman Tim Grayson, coming to us from Sacramento. He's promoting a bill to make it a crime to deceive voters with a deep fake. Also, here's USC Professor Hal Lee, one of the leading experts on computer graphics. And, I'd like to go to the Assemblyman first because I'm really interested in what your bill is all about. And I wondered if you could tell us about that, what motivated you to want to put this bill out there for a vote.
Well, I really appreciate the question. You know, AB 1280 really discusses the topic of deep fakes in the sense of not just the deception of voters, but also about cyber protection and cyber bullying and safety. For instance, right now, 1 in 25 Americans have either had pornographic material or very highly sensitive pictures threatened to be put online or actually have been put online of themselves without their consent.
Professor Lee, put the thing in perspective for us. How big of a problem is this, and how bad is it growing? Is it kind of like a brush fire?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much at the beginning right now, and I can see a huge problem right now. There are two, I think, main issues. One of them is, you know, not having the consent of someone to use someone's data. You can take someone's picture, you can make it old, do something funny, put it out there. You can, you know, insert it into videos and not have the consent of the person to create fabricated videos that could be endangering.
Now, we're looking at some video while you're talking of people who have had deep fakes made of them. And let me ask you, Assemblyman, I'd love to know what triggered your move to do this. Were you getting complaints? Were people in the entertainment industry coming to you saying, we got to do something?
Well, actually, it was the evolving of seeing deep fakes starting to surface, but then also seeing how easily accessible deepfake technology is. As easy as downloading an app, and then seeing young people suffer. 1 in 14 are young people, 1 in 10 are young ladies, and 1 in 6 of the LGBTQ community that are suffering from this technology, and 51% of them have actually contemplated suicide.
Well, I want to ask you something, because we got some video I'd like to show everybody. And let's take a look at that right now. You may remember one of the very first fake videos that went viral online. The video shows a woman twerking upside down. That's when everything goes wrong, and she ends up in quite a predicament. A lot of people thought it was real, but it was a prank from Jimmy Kimmel. He wanted to show how many media outlets fell for it. Well, I guess a lot of us did. But the thing is, this is fake, right, Assemblyman?
Well, it is. The danger with deepfake technology is it can take a person and their voice and put it in a place they've never been, doing something they've never actually done.
I got to tell you, though, I'm interested in one aspect of all of this. In California, you're not allowed to record somebody on the phone if you don't have two-party consent. Otherwise, it's considered wiretapping. Why is there even a question whether you can record somebody and change their image?
Because in this particular case, they're actually not recording somebody. It is the technology itself that is far beyond what our laws ever anticipated, which is why we have this law that I'm carrying or this bill that I'm carrying and trying to move it forward so that we can catch up with the technology the best we can.
When would this come for a vote? Is it in committee right now? Where does it stand?
Well, it is a 2-year session, so we are moving forward, but we're doing everything we can to try to learn as much as we can about the technology so that we can make this bill the best bill possible and maximize it as we move it through a 2-year period.
You heard Professor Lee say that he thinks we're just at the beginning of this. Well, what do you think?
Well, I absolutely agree. This is not just an emerging technology. This is an evolving technology that's actually taking on a life form of its own.
So if this passes, and you have somebody who puts a deep fake video or picture or whatever together, what would be the penalties for that?
Well, obviously, this bill would make it a crime, and it would be a misdemeanor for adults. But if it involved children, then it would have an enhancement that would go along with it.
I see. And Professor, last word here, if you will. What's the bottom line when it comes to this technology? It is certainly something that's relatively new, and people are talking about it.
Right, right. I think at the bottom line, I think we really have to be aware that very, very soon. I mean, right now, all the content that you create, most of them you can still tell these are like fabricated. You can see some blurriness around the face, but like in a few months, to a year, we might see something that it looks exactly real. Right? There's no way you can tell if it's real or not.
Well, it's pretty amazing what technology does, but it's pretty scary as well. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank the Assemblyman as well for being with us. Thank you so much. Please keep us posted on the progress of your bill.
Yes, we'll do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Assemblyman. Still ahead, another danger that lurks online for people struggling with eating disorders. We've got that coming up.
sometimes I feel like the internet can get like pretty toxic, and for me for a while, I think it was just causing me to feel like very overwhelmed and very
That's Eugenia Cooney, a well-known YouTube personality. She's got more than 2 million subscribers, and many of them were concerned about how thin she had gotten. About 6 months ago, Cooney got off YouTube and into rehab, and now she's back, and some of those fans are hoping that she's much healthier. There are so many places online for people to get fixated on what's called Thinspiration. That's a play on the word inspiration. They're filled with pictures of incredibly thin women and sometimes men. Many experts say sites like these are dangerous, especially for people starving themselves to get thin. Joining me right now are Dr. Gia Marson, who has a lot of experience treating people with eating disorders, and Nikki Dubose, a model with a mental health, who's a mental health advocate who knows what it's like to struggle with an eating disorder, and that's because that's exactly what you had.
That's right.
And tell us about that.
Well, I was a model for over 10 years, and I had went through kind of a traumatic childhood, so I was already very vulnerable to developing an eating disorder. However, when I became a model, it really exacerbated my bulimia and my anorexia to the point where I nearly died.
And that near death didn't happen just once.
No. People don't understand when you have an eating disorder, it's a constant battle. And some days you think you're going to beat it, and then other days you are falling flatter on your face than you ever thought. So there were many times when I would get healthy, and then I would go down to 80 pounds.
80 pounds?
Yeah.
Can I ask you how tall you are?
I'm 5'9".
5'9".
Yeah.
Hey, doctor, you know, this is not an atypical story, is it? No. You hear this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a genetic vulnerability that can get turned on or off by our environment. And as we all know, our environment it makes thinness the holy grail.
So talk about social media. I mean, how does social media play into this business of eating disorders?
Well, I think when you have an eating disorder, any mental health issue, you already don't see things in the right way. It's pretty skewed, right? So Instagram and other social media sites are like a mirror. And when people have a mental health issue, they use that as a mirror for themselves. And so when you're seeing pictures of really thin girls and guys, and you start to think that you're not good enough. Right, and then it triggers your illness to keep going and going until you die.
Now, what people are looking at right now on the screen are people who have pictures posted who are thin, right? This is that Thinspiration thing we're talking about, and some of the people that we see in these images are really scary thin.
Yeah, well, they're sick. It's like, you know, I talk to so many people about mental health and eating disorders, and they just think it's about food, but it's really like honestly having cancer in your mind, right? And you are seriously, seriously ill. And I guarantee you a lot of those people in the pictures that you see think that they're fat. That's what their disease...
Even though they look thin as a tree.
Right, but their disease wants them to think that because honestly, as you know, anorexia has the highest mortality rate of any mental illness. So it wants you to get sicker and sicker and sicker until it kills you.
All right, so when people come to you, doctor, and they're looking for help, what do you do?
Well, it really helps if they have a support network around them because with anorexia in particular, you think you want to keep it. It's the only mental illness that is what we call egosyntonic, where your mind tells you you want it.
Egosyntonic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Other mental illnesses are ego-dystonic. We don't want to have other depression. You know, we don't want to have anxiety, but with anorexia, our brain tells us we want it. So you have to find some hook to whether it's that the anorexia is getting in the way of a meaningful life or a relationship or something to try to help that person to want to get better. And
Nikki,
that's the key.
Nikki, we were talking about this earlier, and you were telling me that you've been dealing with this for many years. How many years?
Oh my God, over 17 years.
Over 17 years.
I'm 34 now, so I would say it started when I was 8 years old until I was in my mid-20s. Yeah.
And so during that period, how desperate did you get?
I mean, I almost died several times. However, I didn't think that I was that sick, but everyone around me could tell. I mean, I had to be hospitalized, you know, but unfortunately, as we were talking about earlier, it can be quite expensive to get into treatment. So I had to do a lot of my therapy at home. And I just had about 4 years in recovery where I didn't know if I was going to make it because I would start to eat and learn through. I had a nutritionist, a therapist, a psychologist, many people helping me, and
you had an army.
Still couldn't get it, because at the end of the day, when you leave the medical office, you have to go home and you have to deal with yourself. And it was that inner struggle. I didn't know if I could beat my illness, right? It took me back up and it took me back down and it took me back up and it took me back down. And finally, I think spirituality for me was super important because of my childhood, because of I didn't have direction, right? So you need direction.
So let me just use that as a last question, because we're running short on time. What do you tell people out there that may be dealing with this or know somebody that's dealing with this? Short tip, both of you.
You're going to make it. I promise you, no matter how dark it seems, you're going to get better. You just have to keep going. You need to get help. You need to have a team of people to help you. But I believe that you're going to make it.
Doctor?
Full recovery is possible. People will tell you otherwise, but full recovery is possible. And we have to hold hope for people when they lose it.
Thank you both. Thank you both very much for being here and telling us your story and what you offer to patients as counseling and advice. Still ahead, a look at a very special podcast that any Motown fan will love. Coming up after this. We'll continue this conversation on social media on my podcast, What the Hell? And check out this one, too, if you haven't already.
I'm Mickey Stevenson, Motown's first A&R man, and I had the pleasure of bringing and introducing some of the greatest talent in the world to Motown and to the rest of the country. I'm not producing one of the biggest songs in the world, Dancing in the Street.
You can sing a little bit of that, right?
Calling out around the world, are you ready for a brand new beat? Music here, time is right for dancing in the street.
I know everybody at home wants to sing along, right? He's Mickey Stevenson, one of the guys who helped build Motown into a top record label. He discovered Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and many others. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.